going to say some very smart people had a very good idea about how necessary that story was right now, in counterpart to a lot of divisiveness, perhaps, but also because it reflects a lot that we see in our society, you know, that's sometimes overlooked or just not in the photograph. It's in the photograph.
Yeah, I mean, I'd absolutely agree with that. I think this is something that maybe has a place now more than ever in a time when people feel so alienated and anxious and depressed and afraid and far away from one another, that it's a show about doing this. And so it feels like exactly the right time, kind of zeitgeist-wise, for this, because we need it.
Yes.
We don't need any more proof that life is bleak and bad.
That's right. And family is timeless. So people always can gravitate to a story about a family, people reaching out for one another, and you know, we feel that way about each other in real life, and hopefully that's reflected on screen. I mean, we go to her house for dinner parties.
Yeah.
This man cooked for us.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we smoke cigars together. We go to dinner together all the time. Yeah, we get to hang out a lot.
Being on location helps.
Yes.
Definitely.
I was going to say that.
And it
Where's
is a
Savannah?
beautiful place to film as well. Savannah is such a small town that you can, you know, it's easy to kind of like bring everyone together and kind of socialize. There's some great food, there's great restaurants, and you know, and just there's so much to do. We were kind of like tourists for the first couple of episodes, and then we kind of set in our roots, and it kind of feels like a home from home.
It does start off with the unfortunate fact that he does pass, but I think that's what makes the show beautiful, is that we've all experienced loss in whatever form it is, and we choose to overcome. We choose to get up in the morning and put a smile on our face. And so that's what you see this family do, is despite what is happening around them, they choose to fight. They choose hope, they choose joy.
Yeah, and it's not just about, I mean, in our particular story, the father dies of cancer, but moving on quickly when we start getting episode to episode, it's also just about the absence of a father. It's not necessarily, and there's a lot of families out there that don't have, you know, that have a parent missing, and whether they died or whether they just left. And I think it's one of those stories that does resound with a lot of families in America and around the world, where it's just about how important it is to have, you know, both parents around and keeping the legacy of that father alive and bringing all the, because it's very different than, you know, just electing a godfather. It's, you know, a godfather usually is either for religious reasons or it's because it's just your family's best friends. But this is about trying to keep a man's spirit alive and his values. And the fathers, the dads on the council, they all come from different parts of Scott's life. They know him in different ways. They know the good and they know the bad. They've shared all these different aspects. So it becomes about when you're growing up as a child, when you are lost along the way, what would your father have done? What would your mother have done? What would be the advice? And you know, the idea of the council is to try and keep that notion alive, that, you know, your father probably would have been proud of you at this moment, or would have told you, you know, given you a kick up the arse and you know, told you to get along with, you know, this journey, or whatever it is at particular moments in your journey through life.
And I think the show is being filled with a lot of joy, a lot of humor, and ultimately I would say it's very like life affirming.
I mean, because in some ways, I'm sorry, Michael.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I think the bleaker life gets, the more profound our need for humor. And so I think in some ways, the humor comes out of it sometimes when you're like, I can't anymore, I can't. So I'm gonna find a way to laugh about it, or you say the awful thing and you're like, oh my God, that was the last thing that should have come out of my mouth. I was ADRing episode 2 recently, and I was like, oh, that's right. There's a scene where I'm wearing a garbage bag. You know what I mean? And it's just like, because she's out of her mind, right? She's out of her mind with grief. And so she's wearing a garbage bag. You know, and so I don't think it's an either or with poignancy or humor. I think they very much kind of go in lockstep with each other.
And I just want to say that the story actually starts with a great love. He's an extraordinary dad. I mean, Tom Everett Scott's the heartbeat, and it doesn't stop beating even when he's gone. So the beginning that he gave us and what we have to live up to and find our way back to, it's a challenge, but it's also a great gift, I think.
As women, our greatest sense of failure is having to ask for help, because we're sold this ridiculous line of bullshit that you're not a success unless you're growing organic vegetables, that you composted yourself and you're making all these meals from scratch from your kids, and you're working in night school and you're getting a degree. You have to do it all, and you have to do it while making it look easy, and you can't ask for help. And so I think the idea of having to ask for help, it's too much. I couldn't save him. I couldn't stop him from dying. I can't save my children from grieving. I'm sure as hell not going to look weak enough to ask for help. So I think initially it comes more from Robin than from them. They're very good at not mansplaining, presumably because Tony and Joan are our writers, and I just don't think they would put up with that kind of a thing. But no, I think initially, you know, it's in the pilot. He says, I'm going to have a council of dads, and she says, like hell you will.
Because who's the leader? Who's the leader of the
Yeah,
council?
who's the head of the council?
And it mirrors families now as well. It's about who shows up. You know, I've got uncles in my family that I've only realised that weren't my real uncles. They were my dad's best friends, and they've acted more like. You know, sometimes you see, as you grow older, you see your friends more than you do your own family, and they become your family. And it's about people that just show up and are there for you. And Robin, at that point in her life, needs people to show up. And that's what the show is kind of about. It mirrors like the modern family that most of us live through today.
Yeah, we also found out that it took 3 of us to do what one of her does.
Yeah.
Along the way. It's kind of daunting.
Or one of Tom Scott, you know? Takes 3 all to make up for. We love him. We just love him so much. And you will just wait for his work in the rest of the season. He's amazing.
He is.